And it all started right here in this very room at this seminar. And the Esselstyns asked me to come back and share my story once in a while. And I am thrilled to do it for three reasons. One, I get a free lunch. You can't beat that. Number two, it helps me. It kind of keeps me on the straight and narrow and reminds me of how important it is to stay true to myself and continue on this plant-based journey. And number three, and certainly most importantly, is I always hope that maybe there's somebody in this room that is going through some of the things I went through or feeling some of the things that I felt that I can maybe connect with and kind of assure them, you know what, it's not all gloom and doom. It's quite the opposite, actually. And believe me, it worked for me. A lot of people will ask me at times, you know, about the science of the plant-based journey. And I always tell them, I says, look, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a medical person. All I can do is tell you what it's done for me. And then it's up to you to take the ball from there. You know, in my adult life, I look back and I made 3 medical decisions, and all 3 of them have one common denominator. I stopped drinking in 1978. I quit smoking in 1995. And some would argue I quit eating 8 years ago. But nothing could be further from the truth. But all 3 of those things, as I said, had one common denominator, and I was scared to death. All 3 times I can vividly remember how scared I was about what was happening to me, and I felt I had nowhere else to go. I had nothing. I didn't know what to do. But it's amazing what people can do when they're desperate. I mean, come on, eating plant-based, you talk about desperation, huh? And that's what I thought at the time. I grew up here in Cleveland, typical American family, eating ground beef any way, shape, or form you could make it. You know, we had it. My father died of a massive heart attack at the age of 42. I was 15 years old, and it just came out of the blue. It was the first one that he had, at least the first one that he owned up to having. Turns out when they did the autopsy, they found scar tissue that he did in fact have a cardiac event sometime earlier, but he never knew it, or at least he never said anything to anybody about it. So I have that history against me. But you know what? Everything was fine. It's not going to happen to me like we all think through our adulthood. But then at the age of 55, I had a stroke. It was brought on by a blocked right carotid artery, high blood pressure, etc. And they said they had to go in immediately and clean out the right carotid artery, which they did. The first follow-up visit to that surgeon, which was probably a week later, he told me that the operation failed. The operation occluded. There was no pulse in that right carotid that we just operated on. And he told me, he says, you're still a young man, you're 55 years old, and you've got the other carotid artery. It's blocked, but not significantly yet. Keep an eye on it, get some exercise, eat well, and carry on. So that was my medical advice, to move forward. Everything went actually I went to another vascular surgeon right after that, because when you get a failed surgery like that, I didn't have any answers. Why did it occlude? Nobody knew. He didn't know. He said he's never seen it before. So I went to a second vascular doctor, and just to show you how you really have to be in charge of your own health. I remember sitting, the waiting room was so crowded, my wife and I sat on the floor at this vascular office, and they brought me in, they gave me an ultrasound on the right carotid, said go on and sit in the lobby and wait for the doctor to come out and he'll get you. So we did. The doctor finally called me in after about 20 minutes, and he said, okay, tell me a little bit about you. And I was telling him, I just had the operation and it failed, blah, 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 blah. And he says, okay, well, the first thing we got to do is schedule an ultrasound for you. I said, an ultrasound on what? He says, well, the carotid artery. I says, you mean like the one I just had? He says, oh, when did you have it? I said, about a half hour ago in the other room. But he had I was just another name on a sheet of paper. I mean, the place was so busy, I don't know how he kept track of anything. But that's when I thought to myself, boy, you better start taking notes and watch what's going on. And my wife, of course, was listening the whole way. But I often think about people that are on their own. who's looking out for them? Who's asking questions for them? And, oh boy, I don't want to go through that again. As time progressed, I started noticing a cramping in my left calf, unrelated to the carotid. But I would walk, and geez, oh man, I'd walk maybe 50 yards, and I'd have to stop and kind of wiggle my foot. What's this cramping going on? Then I also started developing at night. When I would go to sleep, my left foot would get really cold, and it would start tingling. It started once a week, twice a week, but then it became a nightly ritual. Every single night I could count on the fact that in about 2 hours I'd be woken up with this annoying tingling sensation in my foot. And I'd have to drop my foot over the side of the bed and move it around a little bit, get some blood flowing to that. That's when I was diagnosed with peripheral artery disease. I had severe blockage in my left leg. And the surgeon told me, this is yet another vascular surgeon, had told me, he said, you've got three choices. A, we can go put a stent in and try to open that artery up. B, we could do bypass and just totally bypass the blockage. Or C, you could do nothing at all and eventually lose your foot to the disease. That got my attention. We went with the stent approach. It sounded the least invasive. And I remember coming to after the surgery, and the doctor was there, and he told me, he says, once we got inside, the blockage was so great, we didn't even try to put a stent in because it would have served no purpose. There's too much blockage in there. So we're going to have to do a bypass. But before we could do the bypass, during all the testing, I learned that my remaining carotid artery had such blockage in it that it would not be safe to do such an invasive surgery on my leg without first cleaning out this carotid artery. That was probably the scariest of all the vascular operations I've had. I think I've had 5 of them, 4 of which failed. Because to this day, I still don't know what caused this one to occlude. And I'm thinking, what happens if this one does the very same thing? I mean, I'm no medical person, but you only got 2, and one's gone. So that one I was scared to death of. But again, I felt at the time, what choice did I have? It turns out, I did have another choice, but I wasn't aware of it, and no one told me about it. So I went ahead and had the carotid surgery, and thank goodness it worked. So now I was ready for the bypass surgery on my leg, which involved, and again, you're talking to surgeons, and God bless them. There's some wonderful surgeons, and they do a good job of what they do most of the time. But what it involved was taking veins out of my right leg and putting them in my left. I have a scar from here to here, and then again below my knee down to almost to my ankle. So the morning after the bypass surgery, the doctor came in with his portable Doppler trying to find a pulse on my left foot. Couldn't find a pulse. This is the very next morning. They ran tests, and that's when the doctor informed me that there was a clot in there. We have to go in immediately and try to remove that clot to save the bypass, which involved yet another incision in my left, above my left ankle, where they went in to try and remove that clot. My first, again, what choice do I have? You got to do it. I'm in it this far. Let's go for it. My first follow-up visit with that vascular surgeon, ultrasounds were done. He told me the bypass failed. I was back to step 1 again. And I remember really feeling, okay, there was nothing more that the surgeons could do, is what I was told. My general practitioner, on a follow-up visit with him shortly thereafter, informed me that he wanted me to go see a type 2 diabetes doctor because my sugar and glucose levels were knocking on the door of prediabetes. To be honest with you, I didn't even know there was such a thing as prediabetes, but apparently there is. And that's when my wife made a phone call to Dr. Esselstyn. Now, my vascular doctor, not the surgeons, but the doctor had told me in the many years I was seeing him, he said, there's a crazy doctor in Cleveland that I worked with, and through his extensive research, he believes that you can not only prevent but reverse heart and vascular disease through a whole food, plant-based lifestyle. And I remember vividly thinking at the time, in fact, we were just talking about this, I remember thinking I'd be standing at a party, being plant-based, with an armful of broccoli and some alfalfa sprouts, and that would be what I would exist on. But I can tell you nothing is further from the truth, some of which you saw today. But I'll tell you what, ever since I entered the world of plant-based, it's phenomenal, some of the things that I've been able to eat and make. And I actually figured out what a kitchen is for, too. But anyway, we came to this very seminar, and I told my doctor, I says, you give me 4 weeks on this plant-based living, and if my numbers don't drastically improve, I mean, that's how much I believed what this man was saying. If they don't drastically improve, I'll go see the pre-diabetes doctor. But if they improve, I says, I'm not going. Well, that was probably 7 years ago. Well, it was eight years ago. And I could tell you there's been no more talk with my doctor about type 2 diabetes. That is off the charts. My sugar and glucose levels are well within the normal range and have been for almost 8 years. I lost 45 pounds right out of the gate, and it's never come back. And I eat as much as I want, when I want, because everything I eat is good for me. I mean, I actually look forward to going to see the doctor now. You know that feeling you're sitting in that white room and she says the doctor will be right with you, and you're just petrified because you know he's coming in with some more bad news and something else you're going to have to go through, some more tests. I actually look forward to going to the doctor now, a feeling that I can't imagine, because I know I'm in better shape now than I was the last time I saw him. I just know it. Medication, since I went plant-based, gosh. Cholesterol, I was on Lipitor, 80 milligrams of Lipitor. I got him to cut it in half, and then I got him to cut it in half yet again. Now, mind you, every time I got him to cut it in half, it wasn't him saying, wow, your numbers look great, let's cut some of Lipitor. He's afraid to cut me down. I understand it. He doesn't want some patient coming back saying, my doctor took me off Lipitor and look what happened. I understand it. But every time that I've gotten rid of a medication or had it cut down, it's because I brought it up. And I said, Doc, I'm cutting it in half. And again, we monitor the numbers. Every 6 months I'm here to see you. And if the alarm goes off, I'll go right back on it. But if it doesn't, my last cholesterol check, I think it was 91. But it's been as low as 64. 64 total cholesterol. I asked my doctor, I said, Doc, I said, can I have too low of a cholesterol level? He said, I don't know. I've never dealt with that before. So again, it's kind of entertaining to go see the doctor now too. As far as the cramping in my left leg goes, it's virtually gone. I still have a little bit of tightness when I walk, and I walk every day about 35 to 45 minutes every day. And I'll still notice a little bit of tightness, but nothing that makes me stop. And that annoying tingling sensation, gone. Absolutely gone. I haven't experienced it in years. And I wish I'd have kept better track of how far into my journey it was before that started subsiding. But I didn't, so I don't know. But I know it wasn't very long. And when I say that, I mean within a year. It's gone. I no longer wake up with that tingling sensation. Something caused that to cease. And it certainly wasn't the bypass surgeries that failed. I know that. So I believe firmly in my heart that this plant-based eating worked for me. There's no doubt about it. Medications, my arthritis medication, I told my doctor I'm going off of that, and that was about 5 years ago, and haven't had any need for that coming back. I was on Coumadin. If anybody's been on Coumadin or knows somebody that's been on Coumadin, what a nightmare that is. I guess it's a wonderful drug, but geez, you could bet I'm going to have a black and blue mark in about 5 minutes, you know. My surgeon, I remember telling him when I went back to see him after being plant-based for 2 months, he said, man, he says, you look great. He says, you're like my star pupil. What are you doing? I said, I'm on a plant-based diet, I called it at the time. And he said, his words to me were, the only diet I care about is the Coumadin diet. And he told me I would be on Coumadin for the rest of my life. Needless to say, that surgeon moved away, and I've got my vascular doctor wanted me to have contact with a surgeon just in case, you know, and I agreed with him. So I saw this surgeon, talked to him, and he took me off the Coumadin, and that was about 3 years ago. So I'm off the blood thinner Coumadin, which just, that in itself makes it worthwhile. But it's just been a fantastic benefit for me. My family, and I'll tell you, my wife is on board 100%, and I thank her every day for it. Anybody in this room that's here in a support role, I tip my hat to you because I couldn't have done it without her help. I can tell you that right now. But she's committed to a plant-based lifestyle. My oldest daughter, I have 4 kids. My oldest has 4 kids. She's plant-based. Her kids are plant-based, although the twins, who are now 1.5, they were breastfed for over a year, so they didn't know they were plant-based. But they were. And to this day, I mean, all the kids, her oldest is 5. His favorite meal is beans and brown rice. He just can't get enough black beans. So she was glad to get him off diapers, I'll tell you that. But I mean, it's been fantastic. My sister-in-law, my wife's sister, she's plant-based, fanatically so. She saw the benefits that I experienced. They went plant-based, and Maureen's probably about 50, 51 years old, but she wants to head off any possible trouble. But they're 100% plant-based, and I hear stories about other people that are plant-based, about the Thanksgiving dinners, the Christmas dinners. I got to go to Aunt Betty's house, and I got to listen to them say, "What are you doing eating that kind of food?" It's totally opposite in our house. It's like everybody has embraced this thing. My brother-in-law's mom, she's 83 years old, totally off of her type 2 diabetes medication because she went plant-based, solely based on what she saw happen to me. That's the only reason. I never sat down with her and said, "Hey, Mrs. P, you got to do this." It's really, I found out also, they say don't talk about religion and politics. Well, I've thrown diet in there as well because people don't want to hear about it. But when they do, wow, it's magical. But for those of you that may be just starting this journey, I'm going to tell you, people are going to be watching you. There's going to be naysayers. There's going to be people questioning it. And if you can get a dime for every time somebody says where you get your protein, you'll be a rich person. But I got to tell you, the people that have benefited from just what they've seen me do, it makes me feel really, really good. It's tremendous. My nephew is in Florida. He's 30. Brian's probably 34, I'm guessing. The last time I saw him was about 4 years ago at his wedding. I went down to the mailbox a year ago, January, and I brought it with me, if you allow me to read this. It was a thank you card from my nephew. I'm thinking, I wonder what this is all about. And if I can read it to you real quick. It's dated January of 2016, so it's been a couple years now. Uncle Jimmy, I hope you are doing well. I wanted to thank you because of the strength and success that you have had with your health. Because of you, my recent news has been turned into a positive experience. I was diagnosed as diabetic. Rather than fear or anxiety or sadness, I have attacked it head-on with diet and exercise. Using a similar diet as you, the doctor is amazed. I have avoided becoming reliant on drugs, something I think my doctor was resigned to. So instead of drugs, my prescription is vegetables. I just wanted you to know what an amazing role model you have been. Thank you, love, Brian. And I thought, wow, that kind of makes it all worthwhile. It really does. So thank you, folks.
Wait a minute.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have a guest speaker here.
Yeah, just 1 minute, thank you. I just wanted to stay right there.
Okay.
I wanted to call your attention to something. And there is a wonderful magazine called Naked. Actually, it's called The Whole Food Plant-Based Nutrition Approach to Disease Prevention and Reversal, Naked Food. And I wrote an article in here. Really, half the article is about Jim's story and the power that you have, that people who you don't think are watching you, and what a difference you can make. And if you have a chance, this is a really nice magazine, but it is so powerful what whole food plant-based does. And
it's amazing. Just in closing, and if you have any questions, please, I'd be thrilled to answer them. But in closing, if I could say, my mother passed away probably 4 or 5 years ago. But can you imagine how proud of me she would be if she knew I was featured in Naked magazine? I mean, she'd be over the moon, I assure you. But anyway, thanks, folks. I appreciate you listening. And is there any questions at all that I can answer?
what you all have to do is sit with him or find him at your table at lunch.
Yeah.
This is your opportunity. Pin Jim down.
Yeah, I will, but sure, I can assure you I was sticking around through lunch. So, like I say, yes. The recipes? That's a great question because I still get asked that today. Yeah, their book was what started it out. Even in Dr. Esselstyn's book, there's some recipes in the back. That's kind of what we used. Then we expanded, and today with technology as it is, you go to a fat-free vegan. Any
You
of
don't need a recipe. If you get the principle, anybody can do it.
yeah.
Right?
I mean, my favorite meal today, to this day, is something that you told me about. It's arugula, black beans, brown rice, cut fresh tomatoes, mango, a little salsa on the top. What else? I don't know, but
Frozen corn thaw.
corn, and just pile it on the plate. And the beauty about that is when people come over, I mean, everybody likes tacos, whether you're plant-based or not. But when people come over, there's all the food is right here, folks. You take what you want to take. You know, it's much easier for me to do that than go to somebody's house where they tried to make something for me and they put oil in it, and it's like, oh, now I really feel bad not being able to eat it. But that is to this day that remains my favorite meal. It's quick, it's easy, and boom, it's one of the best things. But there's so many recipes out there. Once you get locked into it on a website somewhere, you're going to be getting emails, all kinds of notifications on Facebook or whatever.
And I'll tell you another thing. If you really want to be successful, find a few recipes you like and eat them again and again. I think when you get crazy off doing other things, you can get into deep water.
Yeah. That's like your oatmeal for breakfast. I started doing that. I can't remember the last time I didn't have oatmeal for breakfast. But
Find a breakfast and then eat it every day.
yeah. But I'll do my oatmeal. I eat it dry. I never had dry oatmeal before. I have it dry with cut red grapes on it and flaxseed meal sprinkled on it. That way I'm getting my shot of protein. I'm getting my fruit. I'm getting some oats, and she won't yell at me. So I mean, it's all good.
I've got something to tell you all. You don't know about this, I bet. Does anybody know what this is? It's a Jerusalem artichoke. And Jerusalem artichokes are awesome. And if you've never tried it, they are so high in fiber. They are amazing. And if you just get them, they're like these little tubers. Slice them, put them on parchment paper, and bake them at 350 for half an hour. And they are delicious.